Amazing. I'm back. I'm here at CityJS Athens, beautiful scenery. And at the end of the day, we're just too hot here. It's too hot for me. I mean, as a Canadian, this weather is just a bit much. And so I'm dying and it's getting the end of the day and we're all tired. But I managed to get one more for all of you lovely viewers out there, the one and only Natalia. And so I got to know Natalia recently and she's so full of inspiration that I said, Natalia, I need to get you and tell your story for everyone out there. So lovely to meet you. Lovely talking to you. I'm glad we had a chance to finally get together. It's so good to be in person again at events like this.
All right.
Have you done a lot of events this year, or?
Not a lot of events. This is the first on-site event, right? It's
For you, wow.
In this year, yes.
Wow.
Before it was just online events, and I had like one offline conference last year.
Yep. But it's so different offline to online to offline, essentially back to real life versus virtual, right? Yeah.
So the real event is the first of this year.
That's awesome. That's amazing. But yeah, it was lovely meeting you. Lovely getting to talk to you. And then, if I'm not mistaken, you're off to JS Heroes next week.
Yes.
And then you also told me it's your birthday next week.
It's my birthday, right? And I will be just flying back from JS Heroes on my birthday to come back to Amsterdam because I'm based in the Netherlands.
You're based in the Netherlands, so you're celebrating your birthday on a plane.
It's just the morning of my birthday. The evening will be home with my family.
Oh, lovely, lovely. At least you get to celebrate it with friends and family. That's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, I started talking to you and like your story, I mean, it was inspiring. It was very cool. I guess, yeah, like if you wouldn't mind sharing for the viewers, like how did you start coding? Like, how did you get to where you are now? For those of you that don't know, essentially for me, I just came to learn this. Natalia is part of the VueJS core team, and so that's quite a remarkable, project. And being part of that whole effort, I think, is just huge. So, I guess, can you tell us how did you end up getting there?
Okay, the story starts back in times. I started coding on JavaScript when I was 11, and my first programming language was Basic. I'm not even sure audience heard about it because it's
people know about Basic. Come on.
It wasn't Visual Basic. It wasn't like any. It was like Basic.
Basic. Okay, fair enough.
And the machine I was using, it was called ZX Spectrum.
I've never heard of that.
Probably very rarely anyone heard of this one because it was a computer that didn't have any hard disk or any kind of a disk. It used magnetic tape for storing the information and loading the operating system. It was so long.
Wow.
But it had Basic, so it was enough for me to write the simplest programs. I had a book about Basic for kids, basically just programming, some simple things, some loops, and Basic had go to comment. It was so weird. It's weird to think about right now. It go to a certain line of a code.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep.
I was going step by step, and I ended up with Basic, I think, writing something similar to mouse driver. I cannot say it's driver, but it made mouse work. It was old mouse with a ball. There was no laser mouses back then. Like
those old mice, they kept getting stuck. They kept getting like dirt inside of them.
You needed to
clean it all the time, and otherwise it wouldn't work. And the rollers wouldn't detect properly, and it wouldn't be precise in any way. It would just be kind of a best effort to kind of do the thing that you wanted it to do. So for me, it's the same time that I started using computers, and so I remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nice. So it was interesting time, but then I went a bit off track with software development because my dad was system administrator and he influenced me a lot in this way. And I got to university and had a degree in computer engineering, which is very different from software development because it's about how computers are made, how networks are working, how can you deal with a network, basically with the hardware and all this stuff.
So it's more about the hardware side.
Yes, it's a lot on hardware side. I know Pentium to architecture.
What? Wow.
Yes. I still remember the diagram about it.
Pentium 2 that was still single core.
No.
That's multi-core now.
I think it was multi-core.
Multi-core.
It was multi-core and it had a cache it had second level cache.
L2 cache.
L2 cache, yes. So it was interesting to learn, and after this I went to work as a system administrator for some time, then switched to database administrator. And don't get me wrong, it was a nice job. It was an interesting job, but it wasn't exciting.
Yeah.
And I've been stuck.
But it sounds like the one thing I know about hardware, like I know very little about hardware. I do a lot of software. Is that obviously the iteration times are very long, so you end up like drawing something or drafting something, and then going through all the phases of actually getting it to be on a physical chip, and then testing it, and then observing it, and then understanding it, and then it's all about the manufacturing process and all of these things, and it just takes a very long time to get feedback out of that, and then
There's nothing new. And same with database administration. You just do your job, but there is nothing new in the field. And the database I was administrating is again, it's something unknown.
I was going to ask, It
was Lotus, so-called Lotus Domino. You heard about it, see?
Yep. I'm an old man. I have a lot of gray hairs. I'm essentially unlike Natalia over here. I have all the gray hairs on my head. Yeah.
Absolutely useless right now. It's a knowledge you don't want to have. And
it's still good foundational knowledge, general how computers work, and understand, as you said, the engineering side of that, and take that essentially into the things you're doing now. I'm sure it's good foundational knowledge, but it's not good specific knowledge. Yeah,
absolutely not. I was bored a bit, but I didn't realize I was bored till I left for parental leave. And in my country, parental leave is long. It can be up to 3 years. And during my parental leave, I realized I don't want to come back to database administration or system administrator or whatever hardware thing. Just not for me. It's cool, but I'm not excited. And I decided to change my career a bit, which is a good moment to have. Still on the leave, and I just don't come back and learn something new. And I remember that when I was in a university, I was building, we can't call it website, it's web page, and I was writing HTML code in a notepad, not a fancy notepad++, an actual notepad.
There's no auto-completion, no IntelliSense, no linting, no testing even. I mean, none of that.
It's like a whiteboard.
If you mess up, you mess up, it's like a whiteboard, yeah.
You just gotta write it and see, and I liked it. I liked it even in a notepad. I like the result. It's very visual development, because you write something, you have something immediately on the screen. And it's questionably beautiful. Because CSS was still barely there. And it was already it's a web page. It's so cool. So I went to check what is modern web development. It was so many things. It's intimidating when you just get where do I start? I'll just start with JavaScript. I tried one offline JavaScript course. I didn't like it. So I went it was fresh program from Google called Udacity Nano Degree in front-end development. It's funny, they have a course you can take. You're paying monthly. You were paying monthly. I have no idea how it works right now, so don't take this as modern information. It's not actual one. So you pay by month. It was $200 per month, which was a lot for me, but if you make the program within 6 months, they return half of the money paid to you.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm greedy. I'm a super greedy person. I made it in 1 month and 1 week.
Oh wow, okay. Oh wow. But it's 6 months worth of content, or 6 months worth of resources.
Yes.
And so what, did you just study constantly around the clock then? You just put in very long days and just got through it? Is that what you did?
I think it was 10 hours a day I was
10 hours a day, oh wow.
And the program, they actually check in what you're doing. They make reviews of your code, they give you a feedback, so you cannot cheat there.
And you just said you had parental leave, so at this point, what you have a child?
Yep.
You're a mother.
Yep.
And so you were doing all of this while being a mother.
Yep.
Wow.
It's also a nice escape from motherhood, because motherhood is taken for some reason as a leave, a vacation. It's not.
It's not a vacation at all.
No. It's not a vacation.
No.
And you need some kind of a mental escape from it too. So I was doing my job as a mom, but also studying a lot.
10 hours a day. That's whoa. Whoa. Wow. Okay.
I have a supportive husband, so it helped a lot.
Wow.
And it was nice. It was interesting. I finished the program, and I was very optimistic. I went for searching a job, like a junior developer, not even internet. I will just apply as a junior developer.
Junior developer, but you've been doing so much for so long, computer engineering, like system administration, database administration.
I had no experience in JavaScript, so
you're really a junior JavaScript developer, but really quite senior when it comes to the craft of computing. You know, yeah.
But still, I believed I'm in a new industry, so I'm starting from scratch. everyone was pessimistic, unlike me. They were like, oh, it will take you maybe 6 months to a year to find the first position. And it's true, because there are so many junior engineers. When you have an open position, it's like 500 resumes just landing there. But I don't know, maybe I'm just lucky. I found it quite fast. I think within a month.
Within a month even, wow.
It was my second interview, and I was accepted. But the position wasn't like any fancy development. It was an outsourcing company, building stuff mostly on WordPress with some like sprinkle of jQuery on top of it.
Yeah.
It's like, just make basically websites for clients. Nothing fancy there. And I've been working, improving in jQuery, but why not? jQuery is fine.
jQuery is fine. I mean, like in my opinion, especially with something like WordPress, where it's obviously server-side rendered from WordPress.
Right.
If, as you said, all you need to do is sprinkle on a bit of interactivity, jQuery is perfectly fine for that. And jQuery can provide like essentially a lot of life to a static page that is rendered from the server. And so, it's perfectly fine at the end of the day, right? Yeah.
Yes,
it really depends on what you want to build.
People make fun of jQuery right now, but back in times it was a nice tool. You could do so many things. And also, if you did some development with it, vanilla JavaScript and jQuery, you value frameworks a lot. Because you know why do they have them. You know how they make your life easier. You don't take it for granted. Like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And during this work, I came across the framework. It was Angular 1. And I was like, just bring this to my management, saying like, can we use this for this little website? It was a bit of interactive website, so lots of jQuery were expected. It wasn't WordPress. Well, we can experiment.
So Natalia, I need to ask the question. As someone that dabbled in Angular 1 myself, I just asked Eleftheria, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. But Angular 1 had this concept of transclusion.
Yeah, oh yeah, it did.
And so I was talking to her about, like a lot of JavaScript, a lot of frameworks these days, they have a lot of, English words that kind of form the basis of concepts. And as an English speaker, I mean, it makes it very easy for me to understand, okay, a function performs a function, return something, like variable is something that changes, you know what I mean? Like all these words exist in the English language and kind of, I can kind of make sense of it. Transclusion.
Nobody had any idea what transclusion was.
Do you to this day know what transclusion is?
No, I've been using it and like, well, transclusion, whatever, it's just fancy name for a thing. It was great time. Yeah. Honestly.
And you managed to convince your team to start using this thing, Angular 1.
Yes, it's like, the team was quite open to it because it was times where we had no frameworks and web was developing quite fast. It was like explosive moments, right?
It was kind of, as you were saying, that because you used like jQuery in the past and because you use it like essentially to add interactivity onto server-side rendered web pages through WordPress, like the team can understand the benefit of the framework having that kind of foundation, and that's I assume like essentially where they saw the value.
Yes, exactly, because everyone was so tired. And we hope that it will be more effective to use the framework. It was more effective in the end. We struggled a lot. Don't get me wrong, we were learning a new thing, but it was fun. And the quality of the code improved a lot for the team. So management was happy, everyone was happy. We worked with Angular 1 for some time. And in 2016, it was not this September. September was a release. Somewhere in the beginning of 2016, I came across the beta of Vue 2. And it looked like Angular, which is made right, in a good way. It's like it takes all the good things from Angular 1.
Like they got rid of the transclusion bit. All right. I get it.
That's true. But they kept all the templates and directives. And like, it was ngIf, now it's vif. I know what it means. It was so easy to build first pet project with it. It was an amazing framework. And I was like, hey, can we just use another one management? Like, wait, you brought one thing, now you want another thing. But we had an interesting internal project. At this point, some little CMS just to handle our own internal stuff, just basically management of the team, HR things, and like this. Like, okay, we don't care what you use here. We just want a CMS, okay? Just for us. Like, okay, you can use your framework. It's better, but It's
like
internal.
prove it at the
Yeah,
end of the
just
day, right? And like
proof of concept,
and
basically.
show us that it works better. I think you mentioned before this is still the same outsourcing company, so you're still working on like it sounds like essentially I'm assuming it's a lot of different projects.
Yes.
And so fundamentally, I mean, obviously you want to make that more efficient for everyone across the whole team to work more effectively on all those different projects. And I'm assuming as well that. By proving this on the internal side, you can hopefully obviously provide value to new projects because I'm assuming that the existing ones in Angular still need to be maintained in Angular, but hopefully moving forward, more things can be built within Vue or whatever, and like essentially ends up being more valuable. Is that
Yes,
is that?
yes, that's right. And also the onboarding for Vue was easy. The Vue documentation was nice. I mean, it's still nice, but it was nice for Vue 2 from the beginning. So people had less issues reading Vue documentation than Angular 1 documentation. Not saying about anything bad about current Angular documentation. I have no idea what state it is now. But if we compare Angular 1 and Vue 2 docs, Vue 2 were better. And also Angular was in this weird state. They were developing Angular 2, which was also released in 2016. That's why we were like, oh, are we going to start using Angular 2, which is completely different from
It's completely
Angular 1.
different from Angular 1. Yep.
Nobody knew TypeScript in our team.
Yep. Oh,
And
really?
Nobody knew TypeScript.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, how we are supposed to jump the ship? It probably will be really steep learning curve for the team.
If memory serves me correctly, Angular 2 made heavy use of decorators as well.
Yes.
Heavy use of decorators, heavy use of like essentially classes, ESX classes. But then I think TypeScript decorators. If I'm not mistaken, I forget where like essentially where the line is drawn there. But it was a dramatic departure from Angular 1, which had none of that. And Vue was obviously a different paradigm as well. And so very interesting.
And we're like, oh, this has no TypeScript, we don't need to learn. And also, we will be in need of changing framework anyway, because Angular 1 is not modern anymore, it's not new. And we're just, let's just play around both of them. Nobody wanted to play around Angular 2 because it was scary. So we tried Vue. It was amazing again to build a project. It was scary. Come on, tell us it was.
I sorry. When the way you said it, it just made me think of Natalia going as Angular 2 as like for a Halloween costume. It's just like, look, everyone, I'm Angular 2, and like it's scaring everyone. You know, the way you said it just made me think of that for some silly reason. I don't know why, but I think that would be a great Halloween costume. Now I want to see you as Angular 2, like
with NGRX.
NGRX.
But we will come to Angular 2 in this story. No worries.
Oh wow.
I had my fair share of Angular.
Okay. Wow.
So I built this project, it was nice, and in the process I also found out a few issues with Vue documentation, a few code snippets that were not really working for us, and like, can I fix this? I would just go to GitHub and report the issue. And like, yeah, makes sense. The team was communicating super nicely. They responded like, yeah, we will fix it. Do you want to fix it yourself? Like, oh, I can? Like, yeah, just submit a pull request. Oh. Okay, first experience with open source. I submitted a pull request and it's accepted. You have a dopamine spike. Oh my God, I did the thing. I fixed the doc. Wow, feels really nice. I improved the framework in a way. Nobody is failing anymore there.
Wow, this is really interesting to me because like I'm not sure if you've watched the other interviews with like Mark Erickson, Dan Abramov, and other people that are now quite prolific within open source. Both of them started essentially helping out with documentation, hopping into open source repositories, helping with issues and so on and so forth. And it was these small contributions that started early on that kind of built up to much larger contributions. And it's really fascinating that it sounds like you started in a very similar way.
Yep, exactly. Usually you just continue and contribute after this because you enjoy improving the thing you're working with and you enjoy communicating with the team. But for me, it wasn't this nice like unicorns and rainbows because I was about to change my job. I applied for a different position in a different company, and this was also an outsourcing company, but it mainly used Angular for the product I've been assigned to as a developer. It was Angular 2 when I joined, and it was like jump into Angular 4. Angular is smart. They skipped the 3, which is doom number. Python 3. Python 3 is like...
Python 3, right. Yeah.
Never existed.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, Half-Life 3 never appeared.
Half-Life 3, yep.
So they like, it's a bad number. We just jump to Angular 4. It's better. So I've been working with Angular versions 2, 4, 5, 6, up to 6. Learned a lot about it. Kind of like the framework too. It's a nice thing. Don't get me wrong. I was not scared anymore. I still have a kind of a Stockholm syndrome for TypeScript and RxJS. One of my conference talks about RxJS. RxJS is amazing. But I still missed Vue. I've been working with Angular, but when you contribute to some framework, you really want to use it at your workplace because it creates a nice feedback, feedback loop.
Yeah.
You use it, like find out, okay, this is not like it should be.
Like this pattern, it's a bit rough. It doesn't really work out so well.
You go back, contribute, or at least report. If you cannot write the code for this, okay, you can say, this is not like it's supposed to be. They fix it, you use it, and it creates like proper dog fooding. So
I've often talked on this channel about essentially the 1990 rule. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the 1990 rule. There's the 80-20 rule, then there's the 90-90 rule, and the 90-90 rule is probably one of my favorite rules when it comes to computer science. And just to restate it, it's that the first 90% of the time is spent working on the first 90% of the problem, and then the last 10% of the problem is the other 90% of the time. And so it's just to say that like the way that I interpret it is that the first 90% of the time is the things that you know, the things that work well, the things where the paradigm clicks and the things that make sense. And then you get to that last 10% where everything falls apart. The paradigm no longer fits, like your assumptions might not make sense, things just don't click. And I find it very interesting that like I've always said that last 10% is where all the learning happens. It's where 90% of the learning happens. And being able to kind of contribute that back directly into the framework and then obviously help like the next generation of people essentially using the next version of that tool can now benefit essentially from the learning that you've done in that time. So that's just to agree with what you're saying about that feedback loop fundamentally, and again like contributing it back and then helping others.
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling, but I was working with Angular, and I was like, I really want to work with Vue. How do I make this? And I didn't find a job with Vue. The job with Vue found me. Around this time, I started visiting conferences, first as attendee, mostly Angular conferences and Vue conferences too. And one of the conferences at VueJS London, I've met a few people from GitLab. And GitLab is working with Vue, probably the biggest open source project that uses Vue as a framework.
Oh, wow.
And I just chatted with them. It's conference, it's networking. Everyone is chatting with everyone. You're just like, hey, what are you doing? And
just like what we did right now.
They were trying to solve an issue with the state management with Vuex. Like, can I help? You just do this thing. Because we just figured it out on the Vue side too. Like, okay, you just do this.
Interesting.
And one of the people from GitLab, a woman, a senior engineer at GitLab, said, oh, that's cool, you should apply to GitLab. And she explained like how nice the company is and all this like corporate stuff, let's say. So let's not dive into it. Like, oh well. My title at this point was Strong Junior. Strong Junior. Junior but strong.
Strong Junior, but like you've been working on so before you said you wanted to apply for junior developer positions because you did a lot of work in like database admin, system admin, hardware, and so on and so forth. But you were just learning kind of the front end web dev space, and so you were qualifying yourself as a junior. Like for me, I still qualify you as a senior because you're a senior. That's just my own opinion. But by this point, you went through how many years as a junior?
I think it was around 2 years of commercial experience.
2 years of commercial experience.
But okay. It was like, but this commercial experience, in my eyes, it was like bad experience. It was jQuery, right? It's like half of this time was around jQuery and WordPress, and I considered it a bit useless. I wouldn't say it's useless now, but back then it's like, it's not frameworks.
It's not frameworks. You aren't building like highly interactive web apps, right?
Yeah, it's like web development on its own, which is a good thing too, but again. And also I agreed on this, and because in our industry sometimes, but how you sell yourself. And I was like, yeah, I'm junior. Strong junior probably is when you're already doing middle level work, but you're paid as a junior.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna let you finish your story before I inject too many more of my opinions into it. Yeah.
So, and I was like, applying to GitLab. Well, it's a big company, right? It was a big company even back then. How many stages of interview do you have? Like 5. No, I'm not applying. It's a lot. I will be rejected on the first one. It's like it's Google level, 5 interviews. Come on. She's like, no, it's nice interviews. We interview people in a nice way. You will pass for sure. And I said, no. Oh, not applying. I'm scared. And she was trying to convince me. By the way, Sara Vieira, she was already like, apply. I already met her at the conference back then. Like, at some point I was just like, okay, I'll just try, fail, come back to my strong junior work, and continue learning. Like, I'll lose nothing.
I'm going to keep my opinions to myself again because obviously I know you're incredibly talented in everything you've done.
Thank you.
And so I hope Sarah at that time told you the same thing that I'm implying right now, which is I don't think it would have been a problem. Like, did it turn out to be a problem?
No, it didn't turn to be a problem. Sarah, just
you.
apply, we accept it and work for GitLab. Come on, typical Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, good advice. Anyway.
I applied and fast forward, I passed 5 interviews in 7 or 8 days.
Wow.
It was the fastest hire of GitLab, still the fastest hire of GitLab, I was let know. And what was good, at the end of every single interview, I was like, immediately had the feedback. Like, okay, you passed this one. Next one is probably in 2 days, HR will contact you. Like, wow, it's weird. When you apply to GitLab, you don't apply to a certain level, you just apply as a front-end engineer. And the level is decided by interviews during the stages. So they like, look at you, okay, look at your experience, how you hold the interviews.
This makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense to me too, because people don't know their own level sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Which I mean, like to the point I was making earlier, it just annoyed me that you're applying to junior developer positions. I mean, you're obviously very talented. You've done so much before that. Like, how are you a junior? You know what I mean? And this approach is very refreshing to hear.
It's also a woman thing. I think it's like there is a gender variable in this part.
Gender bias, yeah.
Yeah, women tend to apply only if we match 100% of all the requirements for the position. If I don't match like one little thing, no, not applying. I just don't match this one. Probably it's also a factor, but I'm like, okay, I'm not losing anything. I just apply and go through it. Like, yes, and I had an offer. Offer came as a senior front-end engineer. I was shocked. I was surprised, shocked, had a bad imposter syndrome moment. Like, I just tricked all these people into believing I'm senior. They all believed I'm senior. They did.
No, I mean, but you didn't trick anyone. I mean, you're obviously talented, right? Yeah, I mean, you might have thought you did because of imposter syndrome, as essentially as Natalia is mentioning. But this is what I've, like everything you've told me so far. I mean, I'm happy it finally happened, and so yeah.
I'm happy it happened too because the company was great. The environment is very welcoming, and you learn a lot. Big company, big team, reviewers. Oh my God, merge request. GitLab says merge request, not pull request. It's a difference. And you're fixed. Like, first week in the company, like, I created this pull request. Silence, like, merge request. Like, okay, merge request. I created a merge request. And you learn a lot, you study a lot at GitLab, you grow there. And I also continued my contribution. I wasn't a core team member at this point. I was just contributing to the framework and trying to communicate and meeting with front-end people at conferences. And at conferences, I started speaking at some point. And this point was, I was given a free workshop at the conference, free workshop for women, for underrepresented groups, basically, but it was mostly for women. There was an organization called VueJS, just free workshops for women.
Yep.
And I was just given one at the conference in Paris. I think, yeah, it was in Paris. And organizers were like, why don't you give a talk too? You're already here in Paris. Like, talk. I have nothing to talk. Imposter syndrome. Yeah, probably there is something. Like, okay, I will just come up with a talk. It was awful talk. Trust me. Okay, this is not imposter syndrome. It was awful talk. I was absolutely frozen. But I did live coding, and I enjoyed it a lot. Live coding is a cheating of conference speaking. It's like kind of...
Like, I often call it death by live coding because it's a good way to, like, make a bunch of mistakes on stage for everyone to laugh at you about. And so it's a very difficult thing to do.
To you, right?
It's relatable. It's relatable if you can pull it off. Sometimes you just can't pull it off, and then it's literally death by live coding. But if you can pull it off and you can actually, like, get something working at the end of it, and it looks good and looks functional, then you've pulled it off. But that's a challenge because, again, there's so many variables at play, right? You have to kind of rehearse that live coding in a way. And then how much is live at that point, and so, but anyway, so you started giving your first talk.
Yes, I gave first talk, and what was super interesting for me like 30 minutes after this talk, I get a message on Twitter I had a Twitter with like 100 followers. Oh, we enjoyed your talk a lot. Would you like to speak at a different conference in Armenia? I'm like, they enjoyed my talk. Oh.
Wow.
It was so refreshing. Okay, I can go to Armenia, yes. Yes, I will just give the talk there.
So, sorry, and the last talk you gave, and that was Vue Vixens.
So Vue Vixens was just a workshop.
That was a workshop, and then the first talk you gave was?
It was about Vue and RxJS.
Vue and RxJS.
I told you I like RxJS. I was just trying to find the moments when the framework is not enough. Like for example, for drag and drop. Of course, right now we have a bunch of libraries for drag and drop. Back then it was like not that many. And also like type ahead and all the things, because RxJS is still amazing. You cannot really use it with Vue, but I was enthusiastic. And the talk probably was nice because I was enthusiastic about it and just selling it to people with an energy. And I got this invite to Armenia conference. I went there too, gave a talk, enjoyed it a lot. It's funny because every single year I still go to this Armenian conference because I know they're inviting me because they enjoy my talk, not because I have a title of like all the titles, core team or staff engineer at GitLab or whatever. And while giving this talk, I was also talking a lot to Vue team.
Yep.
Super welcoming community, nice people.
Very welcoming community. Yep. Yeah.
And contributing too. And then at some point they were just okay, well, contributing a lot. Do you want to be a maintainer of this repository and join the team formally? Because in fact, you're already a part of the team. We just need to give you a title and access to the repository. Yeah, sure, it would be nice. That's the way I joined the team. Mostly working on Vue documentation, writing Vue documentation for Vue 3. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Yep, and at the same time was progressing in GitLab quite fast. Again, unexpected for me. After a year and a half, I was promoted to staff front-end engineer. It's a funny story because we didn't have staff front-end engineers. It didn't exist as a title. For backend, we had like a bunch of stages, like staff, distinguished, there was no principal at this point, distinguished engineering fellow.
Wow.
Wow, yeah, right, I know.
I don't even know what that means.
I have no idea, but it's like we have two tracks for engineers, like management track and individual contributor. And engineering fellow was the last stage of individual contributor, a fancy thing. For front-end, senior. You're senior, your career is finished there. I mean, obviously you have like, your payment is growing, right? Salary is going there, but your title is still senior, and that's it. And like, I know, I can't say stupid, but like silly, rebellious one, like, why don't we have front-end staff engineers? We do some complicated work. It's not web development, even it's software engineering JavaScript.
And I've always said that like the front end is what people use. You know, like users use the front end. Like we're arguably essentially user-facing engineers, while I think of more of like the back-end engineers as kind of supporting the user-facing engineers. Because at the end of the day, the users are interfacing with the front end. They're interfacing with whatever you're building, right? And so if you build something great, the user experience will be great.
Yeah, if you
build something terrible, user experience will be terrible. The backend matters much less at that point. It's really there to support you in building something great. And so front end is very complicated and very tricky, and it needs to be very seriously thought about in order to build those great user experiences such that the entire company can really succeed.
That's the point. And I was like, our logic was really complex at this point. Like, why don't we have staff? Like, well, yeah, it's a good question. They started considering like 3 people going to staff level, and I was one of these 3 people and made it first for the staff engineers. I was first front-end staff. It was amazing because it opened the window of possibilities for all other senior engineers. It was easier to jump and be promoted to staff after this. And it was cool. And just to explain how rebellious I am, I'm not sure it fits the interview, but just to brag about it, okay? At GitLab, we had a huge payment gap, salary gap between backend and frontend, 20%. Backend engineers were earning 20% more. Backend is Ruby on Rails. It's nice. Frontend, well, JavaScript, VueJS. But we have all the fancy stuff. We have like 3 different state managers. We were migrating from Vuex to Apollo, so it's so complex.
You need to make it work on Chrome, on Firefox, on Safari.
Everything.
Needs to be working on desktop, on tablet, on mobile.
And performance should be okay.
Yeah.
Like MR diffs are huge, and you need to think about performance. So like security too.
Yeah.
It's not that simple to work as a front-end engineer there. And again, I just came to one of our CTO office hours. It's open for everyone. You can ask any question. Like, do you really think that do you really think that backend is doing more complicated work than frontend at GitLab? I'm not speaking about industry in general, but for us, it's a different.
Yeah.
The CTO was like, no, it wouldn't be fair to say so. Like both areas are working on the same. Like, so why
is there a salary gap? Yeah.
And apparently we were using the database that gives us the location factor for different locations. And we use a base factor of San Francisco.
Okay.
So we use the database from third party, obviously, and we're selecting the location factor of San Francisco. And
gotcha.
We were told that in San Francisco, front-end engineers have 20% less than backend. I checked open source, open sources of salaries. Like, no, it's not that. And I checked again, and you know what happened? Our HR department was selecting from the database as web developer. Web development is not software engineering JavaScript. Web development includes everything. It includes my old good work as WordPress and jQuery. And it includes like edge, complicated, super complex work of, I don't know, what people are doing for Chrome, for example. It's still like sometimes it's front end.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We had a quick little cut there just because we're running out of battery and it's getting a bit dark, so I had to change a few settings on the camera and everything. But yeah, we're back with Natalia. Just to continue where we left off, you were talking about, I think, the pay gap and kind of how you went back to HR and got them to kind of reevaluate essentially how they're evaluating your salaries at the end of the day.
It was wrong selection from the database, right? They selected us as web developers. Web developers, super wide spectrum. From jQuery and WordPress, I've been doing for years, just a few years, to the very edge technologies like developing Chrome itself, for example. It's all web development, essentially. So we convinced them to select a more defined thing, which is software engineering in JavaScript. And apparently it was in line with Ruby on Rails engineers. And the salary got fixed.
Because your backend is Rails, and so I find this interesting because it took you going to them, and it wasn't simply a matter of like, yeah, you're doing equivalent work, obviously you should get paid an equivalent amount.
No.
It took them like validating your claim against a database to then kind of come back
but
at
it's
it.
Data.
I guess to be fair, maybe that makes sense from an HR perspective because you kind of want to make sure that you're, from an HR perspective, you're getting the right data and you're not just massively inflating someone. At the end of the day, they need to validate and justify those salaries to the rest of the organization, to the finance team and accounting team, et cetera, to try to know kind of how to hire. So I guess I can understand it, but it's a bit of a shame that it works that way. I guess the perspective I'm coming at it from. It's a bit of a shame, and I think fundamentally it's a fundamental shame that you were underpaid for so long. It's not like they just corrected the payment and then backdated and retrospective gave you a bonus, I assume. But at the end of the day, you were underpaid for so long, right? And I think that's another real shame out of this. But
yeah, that was not fair.
Maybe good inspiration for you.
But the good inspiration is sometimes you just need to ask. Just need to ask a question and you start turning things. I think I've seen a really nice TED talk about it once. It was about taking small risks. Basically just taking very small risk. You don't risk in your money or your health or something else. What you're risking is just your fear of communication sometimes.
Well, I completely agree. And there's something that I do. I'm not sure if you do this as well, but there's something that I do, which is like for every situation I go into, I think of essentially what's the worst that can happen. Like essentially the likely worst case scenario, the likely best case scenario, of course, but I focus on the likely worst case scenario. And I like to think, and then as a mental exercise, I think about what I do essentially in that worst case scenario. So in this scenario, it's pretty straightforward. Like they just say no, and then you're kind of back to square one, and you continue working. That's pretty simple. But like I'll give you another example where like I'm starting a new company. I'm starting Build. It's a big risk to start a company, of course. Need to hire developers, need to hire designers, need to manage the whole team, need a fundraise, et cetera, et cetera. Like what if Guild fails entirely? What if the entire company fails? Well, that's a worst case scenario. And so like for me, I need to go back and I need to get another job and I need to start consulting again. I hope it doesn't go that way, of course. I hope we can continue making the platform, making the product. But the way I think about it is if you can think about the worst case scenario, and then if you think of a path forward on that worst case scenario, then really you don't have to fear going into any scenario because you know a way to get through it, you know a way to essentially get out of it, and fundamentally you become fearless in a way. You can enter any scenario if you have a path essentially out of it. So in this case, it's a bit easier. You just go back to work. I
also took small risks with interview with GitLab. I was going to lose nothing, but it was still scary.
Yeah.
And same with the conference talk. I can try it. I never gave a conference talk, but I can give it a try. What is the worst case scenario? Well, I will fail on stage and never give a talk at the conference. Probably a bit painful, but I lose nothing. Maybe some pride is hurt, but in general you lose nothing. But you can gain so many things out of it. A new experience at least, which is amazing already. So taking small risks definitely worth it, in my opinion.
Yep. Makes a ton of sense. And so you ended up achieving that at the end of it. You ended up obviously getting the raise, which
up front got a raise, which is a bit better.
The entire team got a raise, which fundamentally just put you on an equal playing field as your counterparts, working on the back end. We were talking the other day, and you're talking about, I think, upgrading Vue at GitLab.
Yes.
The refactor there,
moving to Vue 3 from Vue 2.
Moving from Vue 3 to Vue 2.
Vice versa, from Vue 2 to Vue 3.
From Vue 2 to Vue 3. Can you tell me more about the complexity of that?
You're hurting me right now. Remember what I said about 3 is unlucky number? It's not like Angular 1 to Angular 2. It's still a fairly complex migration, not because of the framework itself, but because of dependencies, all the libraries. When core is jumping forwards, not all ecosystem is just catching up with the same pace. So we have a few dependencies that are not there, and it's super hard to move them to Vue 3. Like Bootstrap Vue, like one of the examples. The estimated migration time will probably around 1 year. And we're speaking optimistically.
Wow. Okay.
If everything goes well.
Do you like I would assume like an entire rewrite is out of the question.
No, it's not the entire rewrite.
And so you have to migrate things incrementally. Yep. Are you running Vue 2 and Vue 3?
No.
How are you accomplishing this?
We are using the component library. Our components are wrapping Bootstrap Vue components. I know it's bad. Don't tell me this. I know it's bad. But it is what it is. And we're not going to rewrite the component library right now. So first, we need to make Bootstrap Vue working with Vue 3. There is a guy from our team who is actually doing this, Ilya Klimov, and he is doing a great job there. When it's done, we will migrate component library. So we'll make component library work with Vue 3 because it's the main dependency that we have. All GitLab is using component library. You just cannot make this jump before. When component library is working, we start migrating the main code base. Again, incrementally with migration build that Vue has, fixing little things and just trying to move forward, maybe discovering another dependencies that don't work. Because you never know.
Yeah.
Some of them they claim they do work with Vue 3, but they don't. So this will be a long and challenging path. I don't know.
It's real engineering at the end of the day, right?
I promise to give a talk when it's done.
That's exciting. Well,
full of pain.
I look forward to that incredibly painful talk where you'll be dressed up as Angular. What would we say?
Person.
Spooky Angular.
Yep.
For that talk. We'll make sure it's on Halloween. But the sun's setting, and I did want to ask you, Natalia, about one last question. It's a sensitive topic, and apologies if apologies for the sensitivity of the topic. but I feel like I need to ask with you next to me, and I feel like the viewers at the end of the day would love to know your opinion on this topic. You mentioned you're now in Amsterdam.
Yes.
But before Amsterdam, the majority of the story you told was when you were based in Ukraine.
Yes, I was based in Ukraine. I'm born and raised in Ukraine.
Born in Ukraine. You're Ukrainian. You have a Ukrainian passport and everything.
Yes.
I need to ask, what are your thoughts on the current situation in Ukraine?
Oh, in short, it's like super bad. It's super bad for any Ukrainian. Even if you're living in Amsterdam, even if you moved for 20 years and then only in Amsterdam for 2 years, for 2 last years, it's definitely hard to see what's going on. And we try to help. All Ukrainians try to help. We donate, we try to do everything. We try to speak about it too. Not to annoy people, but because we cannot stop speaking about it too.
And don't stop speaking about it, please.
I won't, trust me. I just want it to be known as a situation. And if you would like to help, please consider any kind of donations for Ukrainians, because it was a nice sentence I really liked. I know that right now people just want war to stop. Everyone wants war to stop, Ukrainians too. But the thing is, like, if Russian side stops the war, there will be no war. If Ukrainians stop to fight, there will be no Ukraine. And that's the main point for us. So, matter of survival.
Wow,
It's painful, yeah, I know.
it's painful. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and fundamentally, thank you for sharing your journey and everything.
Thank you for
and,
inviting me.
It was my sincere pleasure. And yeah, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, yeah, thanks so much again, Natalia. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope to see you again soon. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.
See you.